Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please join us in the place of the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just an announcement. Item number 12, the resolution about public comment is being tabled tonight. We need to do some more review on it. So look forward on an upcoming agenda. Thank you.
Also, I'd like to announce to all about to silence your phones and any other devices, please. And also announce that audience members may be audio or video recorded by third parties during this public meeting, just so you're aware of it. At this point, Sunoco Logistics Mariner 2 update, and our attorney, Goodman, will be here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Because of the number of new faces, we thought a more robust report might be in order. So West Goshen Township first got involved in the Sunoco matter back in the winter of 2013 and has been actively in litigation since then, albeit in different forums. In 2013, Sunoco actually filed something before the zoning hearing board of this township, and they were requesting certain relief to build a building around their Boot Road pump station. That application was opposed by the township solicitor, and then that application was withdrawn. And Sunoco almost immediately filed 30 petitions before the Public Utility Commission for something known as a Certificate of Public Necessity. And that's a fancy name for we don't have to comply with local law. And we get the right to condemn your property. And that's what state law provides if you're a public utility. So the township and the concerned citizens of West Goshen Township got into that proceeding by filing a protest petition. And that was roughly in April of 2014. On July 30 of 2014, after the initial matter was briefed in a very procedural context, the administrative law judges, Barnes and Zappa, from the PUC actually issued a what's called a preliminary opinion, or initial decision, in favor of West Goshen Township and the concerned citizens, meaning they weren't a public utility, they did not therefore have a right to trump local law or condemn. That then went to the full commission, as it can after exceptions were filed by the company, and the full commission on October 2 completely reversed that decision and said they were a public utility with the eminent domain power and with the right to trump local laws, specifically zoning. So that sort of changed the viewshed, if you will. And of the 31 petitions, 30 were either withdrawn or settled. And there was only one remaining. Got to be West Goshen Township. All other 30 municipalities either settled or just dropped it. And we were the lone wolf, if you will. So we had retained an expert in safety, probably one of the top 2 or 3 in the country, by the name of Richard Kupowitz with OccuFox, and conducted confidential discovery because a lot of what Richard reviewed is highly sensitive because of Homeland Security and other reasons. And he reviewed everything and came back to report to this board that with some modifications to the Mariner East 1 line, it could actually be made safer for West Goshen Township residents. Specifically, there were 2 valves that ring fence, if you will, the township on both ends. And they were what are called manual valves. So if something happens, someone has to physically go and shut it off. There's modern technology to automate those valves so that it's automatic. It's not subject to operator discretion. Once an event happens, they go down. It shuts the system down, and it just stays idle until fixed or problem discovered and resolved. So because of those two safety concerns and other recommendations he had to make it safer, including changes to their computer modeling, their software, their internal operating procedures, the way their control room is set up, Richard thought that it would improve the safety of that line. For that reason, the Board of Commissioners entered into confidential settlement negotiations with Sunoco, with the case still pending, and in May actually entered into a settlement. But they didn't enter into a settlement until that safety expert came here. He's from the state of Washington and works throughout the country. He came here to make a public presentation as to his recommendations and his review of the line. In other words, what he did and what he recommended. And that was at the local high school, attended by more people than are in this room. I don't know what the final count was. And the supervisors, frankly, listened intensively to the presentation, recommendations for improvements to the line, and public comment, and tabled it. And after a lot of thoughtful deliberations, entered into a settlement agreement, which was signed in May and effective in June. From June to the present, the Township's done nothing but monitor the compliance with that settlement agreement and hold Sunoco to the letter and spirit of what it says. So, the restrictive covenant preventing any further above-ground facilities except for one, a valve, on the newly acquired property by the Root Road Station. A restrictive covenant was put in on that, keeping it as open space in perpetuity, but putting in an area in which they could put a facility for their ME2 line. That was done in August of 2015. The manual valves are at mile marker 228 and mile marker 236.6. 228 went in August of 2015, 236.6 as of February last year. February this year was still not in. Therefore, suit was brought in the Public Utility Commission by way of a formal complaint because they didn't comply with the settlement agreement. Within a month, they put in the valve. So, on March 29, happy to report, valve 336.6 is now automated. So, both 228 and 336.6 are automated. There was additional screening and landscaping and some other things, but those were the primary terms. And then there was another big one, and that was Sunoco promised in the agreement to put a valve in a particular area. And turns out they're putting it in a different area. So instead of being on the west side of 202, it's on the east side of 202, almost on a mirror property. So we went back to the PUC again, and that complaint is pending. In fact, over the weekend, we filed, well actually last weekend, ex parte relief request that was denied by the PUC because they scheduled a hearing for the 18th. We tried the hearing yesterday, we tried the case yesterday, and we expect a ruling as to whether or not, on an interim emergency basis, the Public Utility Commission is going to prevent any further drilling on that site because of what they promised in the agreement. Now this is just a very truncated, what's called injunction hearing, so it's not the final decision, but there will be what's called an interim decision as to whether to stop it because of this settlement agreement now. So that ruling is expected on either the 25th or 26th, next week. So that is basically what has brought us to where we are today. That PUC proceeding will continue after the ruling, one way or the other, because the administrative law judge certifies it up to the full commission. The full commission will then review it, and they will render their decision whenever they render their decision. So what will happen is the underlying case will continue, and we're not agreed on when that final case will be tried, but it will likely be December of this year. So that's the update.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Bruman? Okay, we're going to use... Yeah, no, so Tom, I had his hand up first. We're going to take West Goshen questions first, and if anybody else has them, go ahead.
It seems like there's a few things that were left out of the report regarding what has transpired since 2013. I want to make something abundantly clear so that everybody who is new to this argument can fully understand what I'm about to say. This is not natural gas. This is a hazardous liquids pipeline, highly volatile, dangerous. So let's get that clear now. The other thing I want to clear up is this misnomer regarding national security. I emailed Jack Fox, who is, and I'm going to read this, it's very brief. Tom, it was good talking with you today. As I stated to you, I am head of the Pipeline Security Program here at TSA. We at TSA are the lead federal agency for pipeline security. As stated during our call, I am not aware of any regulation in Homeland Security that would prohibit a company from sharing information pertaining to their pipeline to a property owner that requests the information. That's the head of the TSA, Pipeline Safety. So this national security thing is a misnomer that's been perpetrated on us by the industry. They don't want to tell us the facts. Regarding the report from Mr. Kuperwitz, I was debating on what I wanted to talk about or bring up at this meeting, and I pulled up my notes from 2 years ago, before the settlement was signed, and there's nothing in here that doesn't ring true today. Now, as far as Mr. Kuperwitz goes and his reporting, the safety report from back then, page 8, technology has not yet been developed to dependably identify pipeline leaks. False alarms may control room operators miss or ignore the very same safety controls Sunoco wants us to put our community's faith. Quote, Accufax has repeatedly observed in its investigations excessive false alarms causing control room operators to miss even pipeline rupture events. That's a fact from that safety report. So when it comes to what has been stated and what we're relying on, more importantly, what was left out of that narrative was the ordinance that was passed in September of 2014. That ordinance is designed to protect every single residential zone in West Goshen. Many of you know I was a candidate for supervisor, and that's been over and done with. But what really is irking me today, my family, we are residents, my family matters. I am extremely upset about the revelation regarding campaign contributions that were made and the inability of this board to act. That is extremely concerning to me. These families that are in this blast zone deserve better. They deserve to be protected. My family deserves to be protected. No longer am I a candidate. I'm a resident again. My family matters in this community. This fight matters for these people. And this board needs to act. This is not a game anymore. This is reality for all of us. I'm asking again, my attorneys, all you need to do is extend an invitation. They will come, they will sit down, and they will discuss. This is not a game. Not in any way, shape, or form. For me, my family, my community, the people that I care about, the people that have fought, and the people that matter. And I'm going to say something that you guys are probably going to be really surprised by. You matter as well. You matter to this community. Your decisions matter to this community. You need to step up. PUC is not going to be our friend. They are not going to rule in our favor. And if we have to wait until December for a ruling, that pipeline is going to be in the ground, operating. And those leaks that West Whiteland and Middletown are experiencing will impact countless wells in our community. The industry is telling people, get a baseline study done. But what they're not telling us is that the industry has successfully argued against said baseline studies by individual residents and accused them of tainting those samples because there's no chain of custody. To get a chain of custody costs hundreds upon hundreds of dollars for community residents. By the time the PUC rules, and they will rule against us, it'll be too late. This community will be severely impacted, and there are a lot of families that are looking to this board to step up and do the right thing.
David,
Just
would
a
you
couple
address
of,
that?
yeah, just a couple of responses. First point, highly volatile liquids demand a lot of respect. There's no question about that. It is different than natural gas, and it's transported in a liquid form, and then when it's shipped off shipped, it goes to gas. That's why it's highly volatile liquids, and they're transported under deep pressure. Marcellus Shale basically created the demand for it. And there are lines currently being planned and put in, east, west, north, and south. To Canada, to Texas, to California, down to Florida, all over the East Coast. They're going to be going in all over. And I'm sure you've seen them, and I'm sure you've read about them. You read about them in terms of the Indian Reserve, and it was Mr. Cooper was our expert that shut that project down. And you're going to see more of them as you traverse New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, and Virginia. We're not unique, we're not alone in the fight. And we certainly have to have the federal and state regulators who regulate this stuff be on top of it. And it's not just this pipeline, it's every one of them going in. With regard to Mr. Kubrowitz and what Mr. Casey said, the operator false alarms that they ignored. That's precisely the reason why we had the automation put in. We took it out of the operator's hands. They have no ability to change the automatic system, period. It's just inaccurate for Mr. Casey to say that. And I don't want anyone here to leave thinking that's true.
Excuse me, but
lastly,
I didn't say it, your safety expert said it.
I would suggest you reread the report. Finally, with respect to not doing more, I'm not exactly sure what Mr. Casey says. You can see exactly my report, you can look at the pleadings, you can see how active the township has been to stop it. He wants us to get involved in his case, arguing that they're not a public utility. Well, I'm here to tell you that there have been 18 decisions. Sunoco has won 18, the public has won 0.
They haven't lost them all.
Sorry?
They haven't lost all their decisions yet. There's about 200.
I haven't finished my sentence. If you'd like to get to the podium and continue to interrupt me, I'm happy to let you do that.
Please do not interrupt.
Sorry.
Thank you. On top of that, there have been another 30 or so withdrawn. So it's 0 for 45, and yes, there are 4 cases active. That's it. 4. And we monitor every one at the request of this board. And if I feel that any one of them have a better than 3% chance of winning, I will go to this board and recommend involvement. Until then, the best chance of winning is to implement a settlement agreement before the Public Utility Commission, a contract action. And do I think politically it's the easiest thing to win? No, of course not. Marcellus Shale is Marcellus Shale. And according to the industry, bringing 5,000 jobs to that pipeline now, and more than 800 permanent ones in Delaware County, and a $1.5 billion investment. It goes on and on and on in terms of literature. But the reality is, we have a very good case in front of the PUC, and we think we're going to prevail. That's all I had to say to Mr. Casey.
Well, please clarify that next week's ruling, what would that ruling do?
It's just an interim ruling. I mean, many in the audience are probably familiar with the term injunction, preliminary injunction. You can be in a dispute and you feel it's so important that you have to stop the action of your neighbor now because they're doing something so offensive. And you can go to court and ask the court to issue an order that day. And they have to have a hearing, and then they issue what's called a preliminary injunction. This is a similar process in which there is an ex parte request, meaning over a weekend, please shut the job down, Judge. That was denied because they scheduled a hearing on the 18th. So 8 days later, we had the hearing. And that's what we concluded. But as Chair indicated, as Mr. Allison indicated, we only have a ruling on the 25th on whether or not they're going to, on a very limited record, close the job down, or deny that and wait for the full year. So, one way or the other, the case will go on after the 25th, whoever prevails. It also will go to the full commission. So, we'll be doing parallel tracks.
And to answer Mr. Casey's statement, which is accurate, that we will pursue it, but it could be until December, January, or wherever when it's heard, whether we get the injunction to stop or not to stop. The point is that you had stated that we should do something else. The something else that we have is what?
My recommendation is to continue to monitor the litigation that's active. One of the interesting cases in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia case, Sunoco was successful in just getting that judge to certify the case up to the Commonwealth Court. The Commonwealth Court's already ruled in Sunoco's favor, so I suspect the Philadelphia case is going to be short-lived. So I don't recommend getting involved now. The other potential case that I think has a successful chance is what's going on before the Environmental Hearing Board. And that's being shepherded, if you will, by the Clean Air Council with some financial support from other groups. And that case is ongoing and discovery. And if I think there's a way for this board to assist in that or actually get involved in that, I will make that recommendation. But right now, I think it's prudent to monitor it and make sure we know what's going on. And if there are hearings, perhaps participate.
Thank you. Gentlemen, name and address, please.
James DeOrio, 1100 Westchester Pike. Come on.
Supervisor Halverson, I have a simple question. I've been looking through the municipal code and the laws. I think a lot of people in here have been doing the same thing. There is a municipal law that states specifically that you cannot build a pipeline in residential areas. Why are we not enforcing this?
I can't imagine what law you're referring to. The federal regulations, the federal
It's a
regulations.
municipal code. Yeah, the zoning.
Kristen, you wanna?
Yeah, so after the Sunoco, as Mr. Bruin explained, this case started when Sunoco filed an application for a special exception, which is a special kind of permit that only the zoning hearing board can authorize. And that was for them to construct an additional pump station and a vapor combustion unit for Mariner East 1, the first line. A public utility corporation has two options. They can adhere to local zoning regulations, which is what they first chose to do. They filed an application under the current ordinance at the time in December, I think, 2014. When that application, when they realized the township was opposed to them and they had about 300 other parties who were opposing them, they said, you know what, we're going to go the other route that state law allows us. So there's a provision in the state law that says that if you are a public utility, you are exempt from complying with local zoning regulations. The ordinance that you're speaking about was something that the board adopted after the Sunoco application that is, the board knew full well could not be applied to an entity that is a public utility corporation if they choose to go to the Public Utility Commission instead of subjecting themselves to local zoning regulations. So a public utility company can decide, we'll either go through the local zoning process and get the local permits that we need, or if we don't want to go that route, we're going to go to the Public Utility Commission, which is what Sunoco ended up doing in this case. And going through the Pennsylvania Public Utility, that entity then decides whether or not they can build whatever structures they're going to erect. So that's why the ordinance that Mr. Casey is saying, Township, you should enforce, the board knew, at least I believe, and we've said this at a couple different meetings now, the board understood when they were passing that ordinance that if an entity was a public utility, did not want to subject themselves to the local regulation and instead go through the state Public Utility Commission, the board's hands are tied, as any municipality in the Commonwealth are, because the state law trumps the local regulations. So it's not that the board doesn't want to try to enforce that, they don't have the legal authority to do so.
Can it be appealed? Is there anything that as a community we could do to?
Well, that's your state legislators. I mean, short of amending the state law that gives public utilities sort of that leg up and gives them that preemption and that power to not have to deal with local regulation, this board can't do anything about that. It's state legislation. The theory is that public utilities, that supply, in this case, they're supplying natural gas liquids or NGLs, but public utilities are supplying electricity or other power lines that maybe residents wouldn't want to see up in the front yard, or that would have to, there would be so much local regulation. The thought of the state law is that a public utility would never be able to do what they had to do to provide the utilities to the general good. So that's what the state law was intended to do. Was it meant to apply to this situation? I don't know. But clearly this board is not the one that can change that law. That's a state law that has to be dealt with through your legislators.
But in the agreement that we're saying that we're getting into as a township with them, couldn't that be negotiated to get it within 1,000 feet away from the residential areas?
No, because they have...
Another concern, we have a school that's 7 feet.
Sorry, let me explain this. So Sunoco took over and acquired public pipeline rights. So they acquired, is it Sun Oil, I believe? Sun Oil had easements in place, and Sun Oil had been using an existing pipeline that when Sunoco purchased that entity or acquired that entity, they acquired all the easement rights. So they have those easement rights by them acquiring them. Those easements were negotiated in the 1930s and recorded against the majority of the properties along Boot Road. So that's a private matter. There was nothing the township could have done about that. When they went, hold on one second, that was for Mariner 1. I'm sorry if I'm getting too close to this. That was Mariner 1. And that was when they were changing the material that was being transported, and they were changing the direction in which the material was being transported. It used to go from Marcus Hook in a western direction, and when they came in seeking Public Utility Commission approval, they were switching out and saying, okay, now the Marcellus shale material is going to go in easterly direction to get to Marcus Hook. So that was Mariner 1. Mariner 2 was that they needed additional pipelines, so they negotiated with private property owners, or they exercised their rights under their existing easements. The township couldn't get involved in that. If they are a public utility, they have the power, and that's another state law. That gives them the power under the business corporation law to exercise eminent domain. So that's between a public utility corporation and the private landowners. There was nothing the township could do to get involved in that. So again, I know people are frustrated and the board understands that, and the board has truly spent a lot of time and effort through hiring special counsel that understands public utility law and practices it exclusively in that area. They hired one of the most renowned safety experts known in the United States, and they've done what they believe under the law their powers are and where their resources are best spent. And that was where they got to the settlement agreement. They expected Sunoco to honor that settlement agreement, and when they weren't, that's where we are today. Filing a complaint with the PUC, which is the jurisdiction we need to be in because that agreement was approved by the PUC. And as Mr. Bruman explained, he has been monitoring the environmental hearing process with the DEP permits, and will advise the board to, if there's a point in time where it becomes possible for the township to get involved in that and thinks that that's a good use of the resources of the township, the board will take that action. So they have really done what they believe under the current state of the state laws they can do to protect the residents of West Goshen.
I just find it difficult to believe that, if you look through the entire length of this pipeline, the school that is the closest to it, anywhere in the state, do you know the answer to that?
I do not.
It's St. Peter and Paul Church, the school. It's 7 feet from it. 7 feet. East Goshen Elementary, within 1,200 feet. These are where our children go. These are where our children go every day to school. And I find it very hard to believe that there's nothing that the board or the supervisors, all of you who are sitting up here, that there was nothing you could do to change that?
Sir.
To get it within out loud from 7 feet from the school?
If I may,
Yeah.
That's right.
that line has been operating in that location since 1930.
Correct. We'll be carrying the same material that we'll be carrying now.
I'm just telling you.
I understand
You asked
that.
why we didn't negotiate that point, and the answer is because the line was already in existence.
True, but the line
If I
is...
may finish. Okay, I won't.
I'm silent, I'm listening. My question was going to be back. With the change of materials that are going through that pipeline, shouldn't it have been addressed? Shouldn't have been addressed. It's not the same liquid, it's not the same material going through the pipeline. This is a completely different substance with a different blast zone, with odorless, colorless, 7 feet within the school. And I don't see anybody upset over it.
St. Peter and Paul.
Kristen, to answer your question, the line was originally put in 1930, and it was, at that time, way back when, it was two different customers, Susquehanna and Keystone, and then through a series of mergers, ultimately, it became owned all by Sunoil, which then became, and was sold to Sunoco Logistics, which now is merged with Energy Transfer.
Hi, my name is Lily Middlebrooks. I was one of the attorneys involved with Concerned Citizens folks. I want to first address a couple misconceptions. There were a lot of us very upset with where this pipeline was going. Not only us, the attorneys were involved, and Kristen will tell you, she and I are not always on the same side, but on this case, she has been working that way. So is Mr. Bruman trying to help. There is a limitation as to what the law can do. And this is the most frustrating part of it all. We knew where that pipeline currently existed, the first Mariner 1. And all of us said, geez, look where it goes. It goes next to school, it goes here, it goes there, it goes next Hershey Mills, it goes, you can go up and down the pipeline and see nasty places that it's located. And that's where they're putting Mariner 2 as well. But that Mariner 1, whether you know it or not, has been pumping these NGLs for well over a year. That's already done. And one of the things us as constituents or people who live in the area, we had no power under the state law nor did this board, nor any lawyer, to say where this new pipeline could go. The state law is totally not with us. It is all about the industry. It gives us very limited rights. We have no, my first question, because I don't practice PUC law, we got an attorney to help us. One of my first questions was, can't we do something about the location? This makes no sense where it's going through a densely populated area. All the questions that are occurring to you folks. And under PUC law, we had absolutely no right to question where the location was. Did we like that? Obviously not. It still infuriates me. Other states have different PUC laws. One of the biggest things that infuriates me as a lawyer and as just a regular person is that public utility law that Kristen was just talking about, everybody thinks about it for high tension wires, for water, things that are for your public good, that you live in your community, you get the electricity, you get the water. That's what you think of as a public utility. The problem, and one of the major problems in communication between the attorneys and the people involved is what you and I consider as a layperson what a public utility is not what the PUC law considers a public utility. And that is a very weird definition that they use. It's not the commonplace definition that all of the rest of us would use. And one of the things that I find particularly disturbing is that this PUC law, and all the state is allowing it to happen because the statute allows it, allows them the right, the Sunoco and other pipeline companies, the right to use that PUC law to their benefit when they're doing it purely for profit. And we don't get the benefits of any of this. It's not like they have a gas station on each corner and they're giving us NGLs, which you couldn't use anyway, but theoretically it's not like we're getting electricity, we're not getting water like you commonly would think of a PUC type situation. So there's a disconnect between definitions as to what you and I do in common everyday use, you think of public utilities as opposed to the law. The biggest thing I can tell all of you folks is pay attention. Look at your state legislature and your federal legislators, because they're the ones who can change the law for the PUC. They can also change, we talk about PUC here, there's also the federal arm of what's called FERC, F-E-R-C, and one of the chairmen of the PUC, that Mr. Powson, who used to be the chairman there, is now at FERC, and he wasn't on our side at the PUC. I doubt very much he's changed. They have the industry at their heart. All you have to do is look at the laws and read it, look at the public disclosures and PRs they put out. It is not in the average person's best interest. And there are tons of these pipelines. National Public Radio just put out an article just the other day of all the ones in Pennsylvania that are coming through and all the ones in New England. Everybody is having the same problem. The only way you get away from this is to do what New York State did, was they banned fracking. I have my personal opinion about it. I don't particularly think it's the right environmental thing to do about it, but I'm not going to tell you how to vote. What I am going to ask you to do is get on the stick and know what your legislators are doing. For too long, everybody sat on their hands, and you're seeing in the National Public Forum today, you sit on your hands. People don't know who they're voting for. You put up signs in your lawns, you say this and that, and you vote in a certain way, but you don't know what those people stand for. Find out, ask questions, go after them, and get them to change these stupid laws, because the attorneys' hands are tied. I have asked these same questions because I was not involved in PUC, and I asked all the same questions you're asking now. I will also tell the people from St. Peter and Paul, the group of us who started all of this, and Tom was one of them, and there was a whole slew of us, we tried to get St. Peter and Paul involved. They didn't want to have anything to do with us. So that's the honest truth. Hershey Mills, we went and had a conversation with them. They didn't want to have anything to do with us. We talked to people in Delaware County. We talked to people upstream in Chester County. No one would assist us. There was a few smatterings of people, but townships, the vast majority of people, I tried telling people I knew in Delaware County, it's coming through. Watch out, Middletown, you're going to get it. Everybody ignored us. No one would band together, and we were trying to get people to band together so we'd have a bigger voice, so people wouldn't stomp on us. but we were the only ones. I can't take questions because I'm not part of the panel. But
Don't sit down, Lily, but so that you understand that the third signature on our settlement agreement was the concerned citizens that were involved with us at that time. And yes, I might not have been a chemist in 2014 to understand what went through that pipe and understood it strongly, but I knew from our legal advisors that we certainly knew that we were powerless when it came to zoning and that piping, and that's exactly why we created the agreement in 2015. And so that you understand even further, be real clear. My wife's worked at St. Peter and Paul for 17 years and still there. So there is a personal concern, whether it be West Goshen or East Goshen. We got involved with concerned citizens, and because of that agreement, it's the very reason that we're still alive in the courts in front of the PUC, where 18 Sunoco votes went in their favor and we're still alive. That's why, because we went the direction of automatic valves, maintaining whatever structures were going to be built to one location, and we did all this for 1.2 miles of pipe. Lily?
I would just like to add also, does everybody all the attorneys that were involved in this, wish we could have done more? Absolutely. However, when you talk to people who are in PUC law, they're astounded at what we got. And I've talked to people who've been in the profession for a long time, and they're astounded at what we even were able to achieve. If they would have been willing to bet their paychecks to say we never would have gotten that far. Is it everything we wanted? Absolutely not. We would have wanted them to not have the pipeline go through. We would have wanted any number of other resolutions. But what came out of it was we preserved over 4.5 acres. It was 4.6 acres that they deeded back to the community, that they could not build an even bigger facility at the top of Boot Road. They're supposed to abide by that agreement, and that's what, just as was said, they're supposed to abide by it, and that's what we're trying to enforce. Can you always predict that what people are going to do? No, and that's why you write agreements and you try and write them the best you can. But it takes two sides to write the agreement. And it's going to be interpreted however it's going to be interpreted. Do I have faith that our PUC is altruistic and cares about the people? Absolutely not. I don't. Do I have faith that our state legislators are going to change anything? No, not unless people get involved and actually push these people, both state senators, both state representatives, federal, everybody. You've got to get involved in what matters to the environment, to your health and life. That's why I got involved, because I lived right near it, and I thought I could be of help. As far as the zoning amendment goes, I don't know what Mr. Casey's suit is, so I'm not going to speak to that. But I will say I was involved in getting that ordinance acted because I saw there was a big hole when the Sunoco came here and tried to weasel through and get, before they dropped their zoning appeal. And I remember standing up and asking the board to enact an ordinance like that, and we worked together and we got an ordinance to plug a hole that was in the zoning ordinance. So that's how that got in there, and I don't want to speak on specifics because it's litigation, but that's how that came about, because we saw a hole in the legislation in the community. I would just say I want to urge the board that if things come out as they may with this PUC hearing, that if it comes out worst case scenario that you end up going to the full panel and they turn you down, I would like you to seriously consider whether you're going to appeal that to the Commonwealth Court at that time. I would urge you to do so because Sunoco does not like a track record. They've demonstrated this time and time again that they'll drop out of lawsuits so they don't have any court record against them. So they can say, we've never had a decision against it. This has been their pattern, and a lot of other companies too, but especially Sunoco. I would ask that the board seriously consider, depending on the legal circumstances, obviously there's pros and cons, but I would definitely be back here if we come to that point and ask the board, let's appeal it. And I'm just putting you on warning, that's where I would want to go, and that's how I would feel, because we've got to stop somewhere. We've got to, you only have limited ability to do whatever you can, and that's one place. And this is a contract, they should be forced to hold their contract. And I think the only way you're going to get any wiggle room against them is to keep standing up to them. And that, again, I agree. The only reason you're still in this party is because of the actions that you took. So I would again ask you to seriously consider that and keep going after them.
Well, Lily, we've discussed that. And we as a board don't have any intentions of stopping moving forward, pending what findings
I understand
are
that part.
resolved. But, so that everybody knows, our intentions are to go as far as we possibly can. Am I correct, Mr. Berman, in stating that?
That's my understanding.
I have one
We're
other.
certainly doing the best we can.
I don't doubt that. I have one other thing just for the people that might be clarifying. That one lot that's next to the fire company that they've, like, napalmed, I think, you actually used that phrase, and it's an apt phrase for these folks. There's two things going on there. One, they're using that site to pull the pipeline through. The other is that they have the intention to build this valve, which we're in argument that they have the right to do. We believe that they've agreed not to build anything further. So you may see work there being done on either one of those things. Don't think that you've lost the battle until, they may be doing work on one part and not the other. The other thing is, until they're stopped, they can still go ahead and try and build that valve. Whether they'll be allowed to continue to have that valve would be the next question. So if they get all their eggs in a carton and get everything going right, they can build a valve. They may be forced, if people are persuaded correctly, to stop that, shut it down, take it apart, and move it elsewhere. So that, just because you may see construction there doesn't mean you've lost this particular battle. I just think because otherwise you can keep coming back and say, oh geez, throw up your hands and give up. My important lesson for everybody is don't give up, because look how many people are now involved. Because when we started this wasn't that many people. And it is frustrating. Everybody has, you can tell from the people here, everybody has heated views about it. But please get involved.
This is the car after the war.
No, no, it's not. I don't know who asked that, but there's still ongoing litigation. It still has a good chance of going forward and putting some things. As far as can you stop Mariner 2? I don't know how much they've installed, but they've installed a lot of miles of it already. It's 2 pipelines.
Not over yet. You testified yesterday, 100 miles.
So a third of the pipelines. They're one of the other facets of this, your state environmental department, Department of Protection, DEP, in my opinion, has not been doing its share of its work. They had various opportunities which they should have followed through on certain things, and lawyers will disagree, but in my personal opinion, I don't think they held up their bargain, and I think you should contact the DEP and say, look, they're having water leaks, they're draining wells, they're doing this, what are you doing about it? That's where their responsibility is. They're supposed to protect your environment, and they're being allowed to just kind of sit against the wall right now. You got to call people, you got to talk to them, and you've got to be a pest sometimes, not illegally. I'm going to say don't do anything illegally, but calling them, telling them how you feel, and say, look, what are you doing about this? They all knew that this was a possibility when they were putting this pipeline in, that they could affect well water. The DEP knew that. Sunoco knew that, despite what their PR says. They did know about it, because it's all in the DEP. Mr. Bruman can further elaborate that. Am I stating correct? Correct? Yes. So they knew about it, but they allowed them because nobody's making waves. Well, let's let them go. They make money. So that's where you're at. You have a decision to make how you're going to react to it, and I don't think it's giving up continuing the fight. Thank you. Thank you.
You'll get your chance, but we'll see if any others want to say something first.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to point out Lily's, the woman who just got up and spoke is absolutely correct. And DEP is one that ought to be contacted for sure for everything that you were reading about in the newspapers, in Delaware County, Chester County, and watching on the local news. They are the ones that should be enforcing, preventing the water wells from being contaminated, preventing the frack water from coming up in streams and wetlands. And this job ought to be shut down by DEP.
Thank you.
Yes, name and address, please.
Melissa Di Bernardino, over Lane. My kids are teens, Peter and Paul. I wanted to address the valve thing that you guys are talking about. I'm only 5 weeks into this, so it's 6.2 miles between the valves, is that correct?
It varies. There's no set.
Around the school?
I'd have to look now. I'd have to look at where the school is in regard to where the valves are. I don't know the answer.
Originally, I was under the impression it was 3, which was bad enough. I recently found out it was 6.2, but I'm not sure what the argument over the valves is because I'm new to this. However, even with automatic shut-off, that's an awful lot of content that still needs to bleed out, correct?
Yes, that's why a third valve is being installed in the middle.
Where in the middle?
That right now, the argument is to
That's
where.
where this is?
Yes.
Okay, so
That would
that's
be
not the
number
start
3.
of the 6 miles?
That would be right in the middle of it.
So that's
Right
probably
next
where I
to
got 3 from. Okay, thank you. The other thing is I keep hearing from all different townships that hands are tied. And I'm not educated enough politically to argue that. But my problem is that if you are elected by us for us, did you guys at any point, when you thought this was wrong, you didn't want to do it, your hands were tied, did you reach out to the community saying,
We did in 2013, 2014, when we started working with concerned citizens, when we knew that Mariner, heard that Mariner 2 was going to. That's when we started.
And that was before it was approved?
I could tell you it's an interesting dynamic because I was sitting where you were before I was elected a year ago. And I had many of the same questions that you folks have here and the concerns that you have. And there was a real knock 'em down, drag 'em out process. I remember speaking to Mr. Bruman. We were going back and forth. We didn't exactly see eye to eye, all of us that are sitting on this board right now. But there was a process. Not everybody was happy with it, including myself. We did come up with an agreement. I wasn't elected, I didn't sign off on the agreement. I had some questions about the agreement, but the truth is it is the only thing that is existing right now, truth be told, that has us still in court. Well, all these other townships have failed, and they're not doing anything. And what I find really frustrating, and it's the sense of helplessness, is that everybody's angry, everybody's concerned. We all have children that live here and families that live here. You've heard Mr. Howard say, has a wife that works at St. Pete's. We are trying. I'm being open-minded. If something comes down the line, we just had a conversation before about this, all of us agree, if we see an opening somewhere, we're going to jump on it. Whatever we can do, when we can do it, we will do it. So rest assured, we're not sitting on our hands. The worst thing I can stomach is when people come up to me and say, why aren't you doing something for your township? Why aren't you guys enforcing this ordinance? We're faced with this one in-your-face violation and breach of contract. The arrogance and the audacity of Sunoco, how they've treated us with this contract, they know no bounds. In fact, they're still trying to dig and put this thing in before we get a court date. They violated our permit process. They didn't have a pre-construction program, and they don't care. Because unfortunately, we work with the second-class township code. And what can we do? Fine them? Well, that's chump change to Sunoco. We'll just pay that fine. They'll do it and they'll apologize later. So I assure you, if there's something that we see, some avenue that we have to shut them down or to stop this, we will. And we're working on it heavily. But the truth be told, so far, the courts haven't been our friend. The PUC, the statute, we've heard it time and again from Lily and Mr. Bruman, it's outdated. It was put together in the 1930s. It never contemplated this type of industry or these type of dangers that we're facing. And your politicians, your elected representatives. I know we're elected representatives, but I've got nothing to do with the PUC code. I wish I did. I've got some ideas. I'm sure you agree with me. Your state representatives, the sad fact is that your state representatives haven't stepped up to regulate this industry. Never mind the fact they haven't even put a tax on this industry. This is your tax. Sunoco's come in and it's treated as like theirs. This is yours. For every Pennsylvanian here, this is your natural resource, and your state legislature, your state representatives, your state senators, all the way up to the governor's office, they can't get it together to put a tax in I don't know about you, but I pay my taxes. I'm a business person. I think they should pay their taxes too. We don't even have legislation for catastrophic plans. We're trying to get Sunoco to give us their plan for an emergency, and they refused. They said that it's...
Isn't that something that you guys should have been worried about, though, when this first started, and not now? See, here's the thing, though. For some of the meetings that I've been to, there have been flyers given out. Okay, I've never seen anything like it in my life. Everybody received a flyer to come to this pipeline safety meeting.
Well, back in 2013 and 2014, I can assure you there were flyers. I was making some.
They were on a public.
So everybody received a flyer warning that this was coming, and this is what you can do
Been on the
to stop it.
website, man.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm making sure. I don't know. I'm not arguing it.
No,
I'm
no,
asking
I'm
you.
just saying, we not, ever since I've been involved, which was May 2014, March 2014. Ever since our firm has been involved, Mr. Lalonde has been posting on the website pretty much everything. And to the extent, there was, I was going to say this later, but to the extent there's a lot of confusion, Mr. Lalonde, is the PUC decision that we were involved with dated October 2, 2014 on the website?
Yeah, we have a full Sunoco page with just about every document we've ever from Sunoco.
So for those in the audience that are for the first time or just wanting to know more facts, I would strongly urge you to read this decision, because it really tells exactly the kind of hand tying that has gone on at the state level in terms of the ability of the officials here to do much other than to continue to enforce the settlement agreement and to look for other opportunities. And importantly, Mr. Kupowicz is still retained by this township to ensure that what's being done is done as safely as it can be done, given state-of-the-art technology that exists.
And he testified in court by phone yesterday.
He testified by phone yesterday from his office in Washington, the state of Washington. And he also issued in January or February of this year a safety report on Aaron 2, which if you haven't received and read, you should.
We had many
All paid for
hundred
by this
people.
municipality.
Many hundred people showed up during our agreement process in establishing that program, as Lily reported, and we were all there. But and Mr. Paoli was in the audience at the time. It was so many people that obviously we had to move out of here to the high school. So that's, as soon as we heard of Mariner 2 and the purchasing of those 4 acres, we immediately got involved to stop any further building.
So because your hands are tied then, and that happened, and
We
there
did
are
as much as we
then it's
could
the
with this
community's
agreement.
fault that it's gotten as far as it
It sounds like
has.
the hands on touching.
No. I don't think anybody's
I understand
casting.
this law, but I understand if more awareness was raised about this, because
No one cares.
I think, ma'am,
It's called lobbying industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the call for action that you heard tonight was, from Ms. Middlebrooks, was a call to action for federal and state legislators. That's what the call to action was.
I'm sorry? I've been on the phone with Governor Wolf's office. I've had the Attorney General's office at my house. I realize there's something very wrong going on here.
Yeah, that's the call for action she suggested, and we support that.
AJ, everybody.
If you can,
We support that, absolutely.
that's fine. If you can support it and go above and beyond, it would be fantastic.
And the township's a resource. And Mr. Lalonde has posted everything on the website, and he's been unbelievably cooperative in terms of providing information anyone asks. And we do our best to keep it current and accurate, and it's all on the website.
And whatever ruling we get next week, we'll have it on the website.
Thanks.
Thanks. Sounds like the board's going to be in the front line with you guys.
Yes, please. Ma'am, could you come here? Bring it up here. Can I get your name?
Hi, my name is Judith Mills, and I live at 504 Old Fern Hill Road. My question is that, suppose we get the Fed and Pennsylvania to stop fracking. Do they grandfather? Will that happen?
Depends on how the law is written.
Okay, so nobody really knows that.
Uh,
Even if it's a possibility, we don't know that that will resolve.
David, correct me if I'm wrong, it's my understanding of reading just the general news releases. There's 1 trillion cubic feet of Marcellus gas in storage that they need to pipe down from the north, various directions. So there's already a supply that these industries want to get to market. So that's a problem as well.
And on a national, and frankly, on a national level, it's even bigger than that, because for the first time, the United States can say it's energy self-sufficient.
Right.
There are a lot of powerful forces going on here.
I think that renewable energy is on the way up. However, I would like to say that I stay pretty involved with the township by reading all the newsletters and everything, and I would agree that outreach could have been certainly far more fluid than it was. The first time I heard about it was when we were asked to show up at the high school. And I showed up, and I've been reading about it ever since. I haven't been at every meeting, but I don't know when every meeting is. And I don't go to the website often enough, so I'm guilty as charged. But I do think if we're going to give call-outs with trash dates being removed, that if there's going to be a township meeting with regard to the pipeline, that certainly it is important enough to
Well, Orange is coming up here, just so that you know that for over here, we've begun, I believe, every meeting with Sunoco update, and we'll continue to do that, so that you can hear that now, that we've been doing it every meeting. So that's been on the website.
She's not saying that they've called, she's saying that every meeting has started with an update on Sunoco. That's his comment.
She's referring to like she gets calls.
No. He's saying that the first agenda item on pretty much every meeting since 2015 has been the Sunoco update.
Hi, good evening. My name is Margie Swart. This is the first time I have ever come to the podium regarding a pipeline issue. I have been a regular for the last 2.5 years at almost all Board of Supervisor meetings and other board meetings as well. And in fairness, the subject really didn't interest me, and maybe it is because when I started coming to meetings, I could see there was very intelligent, knowledgeable group that had this issue taken care of. For the first time yesterday, I thought, boy, I saw this 6-acre lot next to the East Goshen fire station that was clear cut. And I sat through planning or testimony, and the last I knew, in 2016, January, there was a retirement home approved for this 5-acre lot. So I thought, well, what the heck's going on? I thought a retirement home was going in there. So I went to Chester County Recorder of Deeds yesterday, and I was surprised to learn that the 4-acre lot on the westbound of Boot Road was not deeded over to the township, as I thought was agreed upon.
Deed restriction. Deed restriction. And it's on the,
Okay, so, but the deed restriction is, Sunoco has placed its own deed restriction. West Goshen Township is not mentioned in that deed restriction.
The settlement agreement required Sunoco to deed restrict the 4.42 acres so that the only thing that can be, the deed restriction specifies how Sunoco can use that property. And it's limited to placing a valve, an above ground valve. So based on the settlement agreement, they were supposed to be putting the valve on 4.42 acres, which is to the north of the existing pump station that you see on Boot Road. They recorded a deed restriction consistent with the settlement agreement. The issue that now is in the PUC is they believe they have the right to put it elsewhere in the township, and we say, no, you did not. So they condemned the 6.6 acres on the east side of the Route 202 from the Janik family. They filed a condemnation action, and then they actually have now taken title to that land. Traditions Development, who spent 10 years in the making getting their development, has walked away because they can't develop it anymore for that retirement home. So again, the township wanted to see that retirement home go in. They encouraged, they changed the zoning for that, they gave land development approval for that. And again, because of public utility status for Sunoco, they have the right to condemn the land. We don't believe they have the right to put the valve there, and that is what is currently the matter before the PUC.
The deed, as of yesterday, has that clear-cut property owned by the Janik family.
Yesterday, as I was sitting in court in the PUC, my assistant pulled up the deed. It has been transferred to Sunoco. The recorder of deeds takes a while of time before it gets, it is owned by Sunoco.
And even in the court testimony, because we got that information ourselves too, they even gave the sale price. So, yeah.
And from the moment you just described, in January 2016 to the present, this township, your elected officials have been trying to stop that. If you look at the records, and it was brought up in court yesterday, that property ultimately was condemned, and then sold.
No, yeah, I did not go to the Proconditor's office. I just went to the recorder of deeds and looked.
They exercised eminent domain against the Janiks on that property and against Traditions, who had development rights.
How much was, did they condemn it for?
They testified yesterday $2.2 million. They paid the Janiks and or others.
And I believe the 4-acre lot on the other side was sold to Sunoco from the Janik family. It was either for $450,000 or $650,000. $450,000.
Right. That one didn't have development rights on it. That's the difference. But I'm not going to weigh in on it, okay, what it was worth. All I'm going to tell you is that that deed restriction that is on the first parcel that you're referring to by the boot station was put on. It was negotiated, frankly, and reviewed not just by my office, me personally, but by the concerned citizens lawyers. They were still involved.
So did Sunoco not submit any plans to the township of what they were going to do on that 6 acres?
They told us throughout the settlement negotiation that there were no final designs and there were no plans to put any above ground facilities. We have now found out in the discovery process and in the court testimony that that was a lie. And those plans were prepared in March of 2014, before the settlement was signed.
So it was a surprise to the township as well when the tractor showed up and started clear cutting the property?
Well, no,
we immediately went to court.
Right, but understand, the township was advised that they would be using that property as a laydown area. And that's what was represented to the township, that they would be using it as a storage yard, basically, for the pipes. So there was going to need to be clearing for that purpose, but the township was not advised and never notified, and township believes it's contrary to the settlement agreement that that property be used to install a valve, an above ground valve.
One last question. Does the township have a code of ethics regarding their elected and appointed officials and their employees? I looked on the website today, I could not find any code of ethics for our elected officials. I would just hope that the township moving forward would consider something like East Bradford Township has. Real quickly, all elected and appointed officials and all employees of East Bradford Township shall be guided in their actions by the following: conflict of interest. No elected or appointed official or employee of the township shall solicit or accept directly or indirectly any gift, favor, service, commission, or other consideration that might reasonably tend to influence that official in the discharge of the duties of office or appointment. Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to clarify a few things that have been stated regarding the case that I'm involved in. This is not my case. I am simply engaging in enforcing a zoning ordinance on behalf of West Goshen Township. That is what I'm doing. This is not my case. I did not enact this ordinance. And if we've, as stated tonight, if we, back in 2014, when this all began, if we simply enacted an ordinance to appease the masses, knowing that it was useless, I don't even know what to say to such a thing. That's what actually was stated earlier, and that my case revolves around, and this is something that this notion that the township doesn't have the power. HBL's pipelines are not overseen by FERC nor the PUC. That's what this pipeline is. Act 13, a lot of you may or may not know about, was passed a few years back while Governor Corbett was in office, which took away the power of local zoning for this industry. If local zoning and local power was not as strong as some are saying, then why would they take away the ability to invoke it? And then the state Supreme Court give it back to us? That is a question, and that is the crux of this lawsuit. Nobody cites this product, this pipeline, and at no point have I ever called for the halt of Mariner 2. I am simply saying that we, in West Goshen, have a zoning ordinance that needs to be enforced. That is it. I'm not saying that they need to stop this process, but the reality is our mile and a half could shut this process down. Now that's just a byproduct of the argument. But to say that this is my case, as Sunoco has demonstrated, they're willing to go, and they have these donut holes in our legislation. This is a donut hole for them because they have failed to go. They have said intrastate, they have said interstate. They have not decided exactly which one they want to be. And the notion of zoning, West Goshen's ordinance does not say that they can't run the pipe. What it says is they can't run it through residential zones. They can run it in industrial, they can put it in commercial, but how they get to those points are not our problem. So I just want people to understand that I am doing this simply because my family is in a line of fire. My community is. And this is not my case. I didn't pass the zoning. You did. And all I'm simply doing is asking the courts to enforce that. The state Supreme Court has given back our power. And I want to see just how far that's going to go. I want to see if this new ruling regarding the state of Pennsylvania being sued by the Environmental Fund, who said, the court said that we, you, all legislative bodies in the state of Pennsylvania have a responsibility to uphold the entirety of the Constitution of the state, not just pick and choose which one we will.
That's right.
And whether I agree with some of these measures in our Constitution or not, if you've sworn an oath to uphold it, then please uphold it. Please follow that oath. Whether you agree with fracking or not, whether you're in support or against it, if you've taken the ability to swear an oath to something, as I have in my lifetime, adhere to it. And if you don't like it, get out, quit, leave. Let someone else do it who's willing to do it. My case is not my opinion. It is not my opinion. It is the opinion of some very learned attorneys, people that have had success arguing at the state Supreme Court level. So again, I'm done for tonight with regards to this. My attorneys are willing to sit down and discuss the finer points of the case with this board, if it so chooses. Thank you.
And my question is this, I'm very happy that you're fighting this and that you're having these court hearings and that you're willing to appeal to give Sunoco another black eye. Is there any benefit, is legally allowed for the public to come and attend the hearings that you are presenting at? And would more of a concerned constituency at the court hearings have a positive impact in slowing down or putting a halt to or detouring the activity that's going on?
We actually were
Candidly, I was shocked
Yeah.
when I walked to that courtroom yesterday, and there wasn't one member of the public, and there wasn't any press, and it was advertised, it was on the newspaper, it was
I didn't
everywhere.
know about it.
Not one person from the township, not one person from the county, other than your elected officials and Ms. Kemp and Mr. Lalonde, were in that courtroom from 1 o'clock until 6:40 when we concluded.
One other comment, and I don't know if it was the same thought that Lily, was it, that she had about the trash updates, and I'm not sure if I understood what she was talking about, but you know, we get phone calls from Ray Halverson about the changes in the trash pickups and snow emergencies, and it's, oh, hi, you know, how are you? This is great. Good old Red. We don't find out. I mean, is there a way that we, the public, can get messages like that?
We urge you to please use the website. I mean, everything's there.
And this topic is on the agenda every single meeting, the second Wednesday of every month. Now, this month, the next month, the
Well,
third.
so are the changes in trash dates, but we merit phone calls about that. Could we not get a phone call?
I mean, I don't think that would hurt. Maybe we
It
could
would
look into
hurt.
that.
It would really, it would hurt. That would help.
Sure.
You know, we know when not to put our trash cans out, but we don't know when to go to court hearings and meetings to keep our neighborhoods and our streams and our air, you know, our airways and our environment safe.
Well, I'm glad that we
I think
have.
it's a whole lot more important than knowing whether it's okay to put my recycling out on Tuesday.
Sure, I just wanted to answer that to an extent. I'm very glad to see this response. Sometimes we feel like we're alone fighting this sort of thing. We don't all agree on how we go about sometimes, but I'm here to tell you the bottom line is that we're trying to fight this, and whatever we can, as I said before, find whatever opening. For example, Mr. Bruin was talking about the environmental hearing board issue that the Clean Air Council has. And we're actually going to look into that to see if there's any way we could aid or intervene or be a part of that, because the serious concerns of the contamination of the water and our soil. So that's a totally different aspect than our contract. But what I want to stress to you folks is that we're not just lockstep minded into this one narrow issue. We are looking for other ways to make this a better scenario. It's a crappy sandwich that everyone's taking a bite out of. I can't put it any better way. But we're trying to make it as best as we can. And, you know, I can't speak for the rest of the board, but we could sure look into see how we could try to communicate better to the public now that we have a lot of people here to keep that up so that maybe more people would get involved. But I have to stress once again the importance. There's so far that we can go, and we're trying to go even further. and we're going into a new area. There's not any other township doing what we're doing right now. Check it out. There's not one other township that's doing what we're doing right now. So we are willing to try, and we are willing to push the envelope. We're willing to do what we have to do. You heard from Mr. Halverson, and we will appeal it. We'll take it all the way that we can. If we lose, well, at least we can say we did what we could. If we win, fantastic. But in the meantime, what has to be done, if you really want to affect change, and we could be partners in this, and I think we could get a more consolidated, regional approach, more comprehensive approach, then let's start organizing so that we can talk to those legislators, those state representatives, those state senators, because that's where you'll get the legislation. The laws are the laws. Written in 1930 what, David, the PUC statute? It's time for a change. It's time for them to get off their duff. It's time for them to start regulating. It's time for them to start legislating. That's what we have to start focusing on. When we see the back and forth going on here, this is a healthy discussion. This is good. But I can't help but think how Sunoco is probably looking in saying, this is fantastic. They're going at it. They're going at each other instead of going at Sunoco. So let's keep that in mind. If you really want the results, let's get united. Let's get on the same page. We'll have our disagreements. That's just a healthy democracy. That's the way it should be. But that's the attitude we should have. So I'm really glad that you're out here. And I, for one, and I think the board would agree that there's ways that we could help communicate better. We're all for that.
Chris, I'd love to be there to help support our own lawyer, who's representing my county.
But, sir,
He's sitting there surprised today. No one was there. We could be there.
If you have something to say, they'll be at the podium, and there's a young lady up there now.
Our phone calls only go to West Goshen residents. Okay, I wasn't well, we've had a couple of people speaking, we're not from West Goshen, so I want to make that clear.
Hi, my name is Robin Stonnebeck. I live at 860 West Town Road in West Goshen. I've sort of come to the conclusion that if you're in the fight, and we thank you for doing that, nobody wants to have any catastrophic event happen, whether it's on Boot Road in our township or whether it's on 352, which is East Goshen Township. Everyone who lives along the pipeline are our neighbors and our friends, and they play, basketball or baseball and all these other organizations, but knowing what the stakes are against us in terms of the way the PUC is written and how Sunoco has done their best to ensure that they're getting the best of the law, my focus has really been on the safety, because I understand that the DEP is 100% responsible for ensuring that the pipeline is laid according to our environmental regulations. But I've attended 2 of the East Goshen Township supervisor meetings. They seem to still have them in the high school, and they talk about this issue because they have a much larger tract of space to cover. And what I guess I'm concerned about is the fact that I initially thought that this type of catastrophic event was sort of like a nuclear power plant. Everybody knew that the chances of a nuclear explosion is very, very small, but at the end of the day, it's completely catastrophic. But in those situations, people know that the plant's there, you can see it for miles, and you probably have a sense of almost comfort now that it hasn't happened, so we kind of forget about it. Well, what I learned about the high-density liquids, NGLs, natural gas liquids, is that they're very different than a nuclear power plant type of issue, in that if they are leaked into the soil and they eventually evaporate, because they're colorless and they're odorless, you really don't know that they're there until you can observe degradation to the plant life, the grass, etc. And I think my biggest concern is that over the last couple of years, since the settlement agreement, I've heard that the township is somewhat limited, that this is a safety protocol that's going to be developed perhaps at the county level. But what I've been hearing in every one of those meetings I went to at East Goshen, where people have been very vocal and are very well educated, and they're talking about their property values and they're talking about eminent domain, is that there's so much fear associated with this product that's going underground, and with the potential for, well, we know Mariner 2 is coming through, but 3 and 4 and 5, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And one of the things I have to say that I appreciate about what's happening at East Goshen is that they seem to have frequent enough events so that if you can't make the one meeting where we're having this type of conversation, which has been fantastic, from an education standpoint and a community standpoint, to be able to stay up to date, because hearing nothing just leaves us to worry. And until we hear about what you're doing, but we hear how much Sunoco is pushing back and how, I'm going to use the word, I feel helpless and hopeless that we're going to ever get this changed, at least even the routing of it. But there can be something we can do if we can improve the communication about the true safety. Now, you talked about Dr. Kupritz's presentation. I've never seen, I wasn't here, I wasn't involved at the time. I'm wondering if that document, even though it's privileged or confidential to some extent, if there could be some elements of that that can be shared with us, and that there could be more frequent conversations as this is getting closer and closer, especially with Mariner 1 already pumping, that we understand what those risks are. I know at some point we're going to get the emergency management services into play, but as citizens, we need to be informed so that we can protect ourselves. You can't be everywhere. We have no idea where this thing could end up showing up. If it doesn't get ignited at the source of the leak, it can be ignited, downhill, and people who maybe don't live within 7 feet or 1,800 feet or could still have this on their property and not know. And again, because it's colorless and odorless, any amount of information that we can have to be able to quell our fears, or at least feel like we're empowered to know what to do, would be hugely beneficial for us.
Thank you. The answer to your question, and I was probably not clear in my earlier statements, but what was confidential was the documents that Sunoco provided about their computer software programming, their schematics and drawings with respect to what's in the ground and what's planned for the future, and what they call proprietary information, which the PUC has protected as proprietary. But because of a confidentiality agreement, all of that was supplied to our safety expert. The safety expert's report, Mr. Kuprowitz and AccuFacts, are public documents, are posted on the Township website.
Okay.
So there's 2 reports. One was authored in 2015, and the other was authored in January of 2017. The 2015 report looked at the Mariner 1 existing line and what was called the repurposing of that line from petroleum to NGLs. So that's the first report. The second report had to do with what were the construction techniques and operational techniques for the new ME2 line, which is a very different line, not just in size, but also the type of materials they're using and the type of welding that they're doing, and the QA/QC for those welds. All that's on is all is a report, and it's all public. That's the January 2017 report.
Yeah, we just upgraded the Township's website.
Yes, and it's fantastic. I'm
Okay.
going to compliment you on it. It's
Fantastic.
beautiful.
Glad to hear.
So much easier to navigate, yes.
And I know for sure the Mariner 1 report, I believe I posted the second report, but I will ensure that every single document we have maybe 20 documents on there already. I will ensure that every single piece of paper that we have that will be publicly released will be added.
And the only thing I'll comment on is that obviously I'm all about public disclosure, and this should be clear. I think we should asterisk the really important ones, because when you see the volume of paper, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
But there are some key documents, and I pointed out the one from 2014. There are others, and those are the ones that you should read first. If you are inclined to read them all, thank you. A lot of work went into that, but the key ones are about 5 or 6.
Yeah, there's probably several hundred pages already posted since 2015. And one thing about East Goshen had a meeting with Sunoco a few weeks ago at Fugit.
Yes.
We have asked repeatedly, Sunoco, please, can we have a similar meeting with Sunoco representatives? Because we are not going to answer Sunoco questions, because it's not the line. Because of our PUC activity, they have refused to have a meeting with us and the public because we have brought this action against them.
The other point to make, to your point of understanding safety protocols, that is something that Derek Davis, the assistant manager, has been working on, soliciting proposals from experts to help prepare an emergency response plan specifically for residents within West Goshen who live within the radius of pipeline. And again, the proposals and the experts that Mr. Davis is reaching out to are telling him that you can do that, the county will get involved, but you really do need Sunoco to be helping you and providing you information. And Sunoco, Mr. Bruin has tried on probably 20 different occasions to follow up with their council to get that information and to get their assistance. And today they left a voice message that Mr. Bruin shared with us that said that we will not be assisting West Goshen because of all the municipalities within the Commonwealth. West Goshen is the only one that's been so difficult. So I actually said we should try to stream and so that everybody can hear that voice message to understand that they're viewing West Goshen as being, you know, trying to stop them and trying to do what the public wants, and that's ensure the safety. So despite that, Mr. Davis will continue to try to work with experts to get a safety protocol put in place. So exactly that, if I lived on close to that line, I would want to know who's going to notify me if something happens. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to get in my car? Am I supposed to stay in my home? Whatever. That's something that the township is trying to prepare and then disseminate. Andrea attests to the fire marshal will be involved in that as well.
Is there any timeline in place already for the county to, are they already working on this plan for the entire area? Because I hear very little about that and I don't know how to find out what is happening thus far.
We've been trying to push them for months. Derek, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if she's talking about as far as like a county-wide plan.
I understood that the emergency management services pretty much start at the county level and filter out to the municipalities. Is that accurate? Okay.
They said they would be involved in making our plan as far as what they're doing outside of our municipality, and if they're doing anything countywide, I can't speak to that. But they are, I think, them, they said they would be involved if we can move forward with the emergency plan of our own.
Okay. And then the last question I have is, you just touched upon a point that I've been wanting to make for a while. Is it possible that we can be coordinating with East Goshen Township and Euclid Township and Middletown Township to be sharing all this information? Are you already doing that?
We're sharing the information with those that have expressed the willingness to challenge and litigate. And we're communicating with every one of them with respect to the ongoing litigation.
And as soon as our neighbors learned in 15 and just a few months ago that West Goshen had paid good money to Mr. Gruberwitz to produce those 2 reports, I get a phone call from all our neighbors who didn't help us pay, and I don't want them to be our neighbors. Sorry, hold on. I get a call, can we please have the report? And I say, do you want to give me some, and I'm joking with them, of course. Do you want to help pay for the report? No, but can I have it? I said, it's on our website. Feel free, public document. So that's kind of your answer.
Casey, just to add to that too, if you're more of a video person, on our West Goshen YouTube channel, Mr. Cooperwitz gave a presentation here regarding his report in our January 2017 meeting, and that's actually posted on the YouTube channel.
The meeting was fully videotaped. It's posted to our YouTube page. He gave a good
page links to our website.
Correct. He gave a good hour and a half presentation on there and his report.
So the last thing I would say, Mr. Bruin, is that if you have any townships nearby or who are anywhere on the pipeline who are not in litigation with Sunoco, can we see if they can get us the data? You said those of the 4 that might be still litigating against them. I think that would be data that would be very valuable to us.
Well, I'll also turn back, though, as Lily eloquently did earlier. To reemphasize what Kristen said, and sort of put an exclamation point on it, we were told today that we're not allowed to have a copy of their emergency response plan, and they will not cooperate with us in terms of emergency response, period. Now, if that doesn't prompt this audience to go home and start picking up the phone and calling your governor, your legislators, Pennsylvania Utility Commission, FEMA, and National Homeland Security, I don't know what does.
Okay, thank you very much.
Take one more and then we're going to take a break. All the way from the back.
Feel free to come up. May I get your name? Happy
I just have a really quick question. I live on Windsor Drive. I just have a quick question. This township is doing all it can, and we know it's doing far more than other townships along the pipeline. I want to know, I know you have, I'm sure, reached out to our senators and our congressmen and all. Who has come to help us? Has anybody known, right? Okay, so we know what we can do here, which is not much. But so it is on us and our congressmen and our senators, and it's our responsibility to get them to help us.
Yes, in the state legislature, the governor.
Yes.
We're in, I don't want to use hyperbole, but we are in this fight alone.
I understand.
We're in this fight, we're getting no support.
It's becoming evident here. So I know at one meeting a way back, there was a congressman that showed up to our state representative. Yes. And since then, nobody, nothing, no township, nothing.
I've recently spoken with Carolyn Committee.
Yeah.
She's trying to form some type of board, and I'm not sure what kind of mechanism it would be, or if it would just be advisory, or if it would have any type of power, but I expressed an interest in learning more about what she's trying to do, and I would like to meet with her to tell her exactly what's going on here, because I think even some of our state representatives don't know all of the nuances that you people in this room today have learned.
Yes.
Because, they're dealing with a lot of different issues. So it's up to us not to take it for granted that they know everything that's going on, because believe you me, I mean, no cutting on anyone, I'm just saying they don't know. And I think there's many people in here that are up to speed now today that, you could go and you can help inform and help spread the word.
And I'm not a political person, so I'm novice to this myself, but there are lobbyists, there are people that receive money for their campaigns from such large corporations, and that is, I believe, documented somewhere from that, their contributions.
State Ethics Committee.
State Ethics Committee. Okay, so we need to know what congressman and senator across the state has received money from this company that has violated our township so, our state so much. And that is public record, I suppose?
It's
You
public
may need
record.
some help interpreting it all
Yeah.
because of the way they hide their contributions through PACs and everything else. You'll get to it if you work hard enough at it.
Okay. Anything you folks know or can provide onto the website that would guide us in the right direction? If it's not a possibility, it's not, but.
It's kind of a political activity. I'm not sure if we want to get into that.
It would help us.
All right, thanks.
All right, we're going to be quiet.
Okay, well, today I'm going to May I get your name?
My name's Pat Kogan.
Okay.
I wasn't anticipating on speaking, but I'm from Euclid Township. And I just wanted to say how impressed I am with all of you and how much work you've done. 2 months ago, we had a very heated meeting with Supervisor Toner, and we've been organizing ourselves and getting ordinance in place in our township, and I can tell you that there are people in Euclid that want to help you, and we're willing to help you. And I'm going to bring all this really good information back to Euclid, and we are on board with everything that you're saying, and we want to fight.
Thank you. Well, pay attention to our website. Again, when we meet next month, we will give you an update. If the ruling comes down next week, it'll be on our website, and so that you can check it immediately. This has been great. Served a long time, and I can probably count on one hand where an elected official, at least municipal level, can't be responsible for a yes or no answer at Wawa when you're getting your coffee in the morning. When you're involved with utility overrides like this, the preempt zoning, it's very frustrating and it's very difficult. But we're in the fight, so we're going to be there for a while, and that's what we're going to do, and stay tuned. And we're going to continue. We will let our attorneys leave tonight for Sunoco, so there'll be no more Sunoco discussion tonight. If we can all take a 5-minute break, it would be great. Thank you.